Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? We're back to mop up the end of Keith Giffen's run on Bloodstrike. And if you caught the end of the last episode, you'll know we're probably going to need a mop because that fight with Supreme did not go well. If you did miss it, I'd go back and watch it. It's surprisingly brutal. So yeah, we're doing Bloodstrike number 6 today. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, what you can do is in the description, there's a link to my Patreon. And if you subscribe there, that'll give you access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. All right, so yeah, Bloodstrike number 6. So, might as well just start with what happened in the last one. The team got fucking decimated. They were assigned to go and take down Supreme, and Supreme just obliterated them. Shogun got just squished inside his armor. Foreplay got like a couple of her arms knocked off, and Cabbot got absolutely annihilated. Like torn in half, got his face mushed. It was a pretty nasty panel, which I enjoyed quite a bit. Which makes sense because it fits the context, right? Bloodstrike is a team of superheroes that keeps getting resurrected. So stands to reason every once in a while they're going to get sent out and they're going to get destroyed. And previous to issue 5, we hadn't really seen that. We'd seen them take some damage that should normally kill somebody, but that's really no different from anybody else in any comic universe, really. So last issue, seeing them just get turned into goo, it does kind of set the book apart a little bit. This is not just going to be everybody goes home to lick their wounds. This is everybody gets sent home in a jar or whatever they can scrape up and then patched together by a bunch of technicians before they're sent back out again. It's a subtle difference. There's also been a bit of a through line with Deadlock over the last couple of issues, whether he has a multiple personality or potentially a twin brother, which no, he doesn't have that. And he goes on murder sprees, and then he gets teleported back to Bloodstrike headquarters and doesn't recognize anybody or doesn't recognize them as an ally. And yeah, last issue he attacked Cabbot, and Cabbot had to go and punch a hole in his chest. Sucks to have to do that. So he's out of commission for this particular issue. So let's start off with the cover here. We're back to Dan Fraga on the cover, which is probably okay. Dan Fraga isn't particularly good at this time, but he has locked a couple of things down. So like this shot here is very solid. There's no real problems with Cabbot here or these guys. In fact, I kind of like this as a setup for what's going to go on in the issue too. It's a little basic as far as cover compositions go, but I mean, we could have just had Cabbot there standing. That's been several covers of, Youngblood or Savage Dragon or whatever. But yeah, fairly decent, and the color actually helps it stand out a little bit too. Okay, so this is Inside Project Born Again. Story and layouts by Keith Giffen. Pencils and additional layouts. Fancy. By Chris Alexander. Inks Marlo Alquiza, Jonathan Sabal, and John Lowe. We're seeing this more and more where they do inks by committee. As I think some of the guys who would go on to be bigger, which is mostly Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, although Mark Silvestri would also pick up some slack, they're getting really focused on becoming publishers around now and doing everything as a studio. It's more of a Jim Lee thing, really, but we see Mark Silvestri do it in Cyberforce number 6. I don't know how much that book Mark Silvestri drew. I don't think it was too much. I don't think it was more than half. And they had like half a dozen inkers on that fucking thing. Script, so actual words by Eric Stevenson. Colors by Byron Talbot, who I don't enjoy his work, I have to say. And hey, just in case we forgot, the characters were created by Rob Liefeld. It's always important to acknowledge that, or Rob will throw a hissy fit. Okay, so we're going to start things off with a splash page, and a pretty creepy one at that. So as they say here, we get a little bit of a recap just over 1 week ago. So hey, we actually got a time frame too. The super secret is a little old school comics, but okay. The super secret government strike force known as Bloodstrike faced quite possibly their greatest challenge ever and failed. And anyway, this is Project Born Again's freezer, essentially. This is where all of their superheroes that need to be reanimated are sent for cold storage until they can actually be operated on. And I think here we've got Cabbot and Foreplay. I'm not sure where Shogun is. And I kind of wondered at first, like, who are all these other guys? Like, well, you know what? Actually, Project Born Again seems to have a long reach in the Extreme universe. These could all just be other guys who were in other units. Who knows? It's not something that's really come up to this point, but it might in future. And as far as the page goes, it's drawn reasonably well. This is kind of high end for one of the lesser mid-90s average Joe artists. You know, like when Image goes full work for a hire, and all the books pretty much are drawn by guys you never heard of and guys who didn't usually go on to do much. This is, you know, about as much as we can expect from that, I think. Decent amount of detail. I like the shading. The shadows don't necessarily make a ton of sense, but, you know, you get the idea, and I like that they're all backlit. Although I think they're all supposed to be naked, too, so that's what's with the backlighting. Okay. And we're going to open with a couple of texts going into the freezer so that they can pick up foreplay, because they got to work on resurrecting her again. Apparently this happens fairly often. This guy here says, I'd bet I've hauled this girl's butt in and out of this place over a dozen times since they first brought her back. And for what? So she can get clobbered again? I feel like that's a bit of a commentary on how useless a girl with 4 arms might be, but, you know, unless she's got super strength, I guess that would do it. So yeah, the texts get creeped out having to go in among the bodies here, and they're thinking there's no point to what they're doing, but hey, you know, a job's a job. All right, so then we cut to some other kinds of texts. These are more medical texts, I think, who wheel out Foreplay's body, and they're going to get to work on the process of bringing her back by the looks of it, and her eyes start to flutter in the middle of it, so they just up the anesthetic. This is all fine, nothing special going on, but not a lot of room to fuck up a lot, too. So that's something. This is undoubtedly a Keith Giffen 9-panel grid. And then we get our splash of Foreplay getting opened up and getting kind of stitched back together, which is one of those, I think, kind of pointless splashes. And the dialogue kind of reflects it. They don't talk about anything particularly important. Just the one guy here going like, you guys ever wonder what would happen if you told your family what we actually do? And just, you know, ruminating a little bit. Little bit of dialogue to just fill out the page. It's all fairly good. Again, the colors are a problem for me. Byron Tallman just picks some weird shades that I do not like. So from there, we're going to cut to the command center, where the new guy, who I posited might be the guy from Prophet, which was Omen, he's not. This guy is named Noble. So, you know, another light-haired dude in a 3-piece suit. You know, so same model, slightly different serial number. This particular submodel isn't quite as evil as the Omen model, right? And he's talking to Rome, so he's in control of Bloodstrike now. Rome lets him know that apparently there's some sort of shakeup going on in Youngblood. And this is around the time that Chapel has turned up HIV positive, because that's a big thing going around at the time, so we might as well work that into the comics. And they mention here that he was most likely infected by his boss, Jason Wynn, but the public story getting sent about is that Chapel was sexually irresponsible, essentially. And we end by finding out that Chapel tomorrow is coming to Project Born Again. That'd be an interesting thing. I wonder if they kill him off and bring him back in order to kill the HIV virus. Possible, right? If you leave the body dead for a while, any viruses die, and you just, bring them back. I mean, you know, they're not exactly good as new. They seem to suffer from occasional temporary psychosis. But, what do you want? You want column A? Do you want column B, I guess? So now we're going to cut to Cabbot being glued back together. And they're having a bit more trouble with Cabbot than they are with Foreplay. For some reason, they're getting weird biofeedback that they don't usually get. Their usual procedures aren't having the desired results. It's almost as if he doesn't want to come back. And you figure, like, Cabbot seems to have done this the most out of any of them. So yeah, that makes a bit of sense. Meanwhile, this seems almost like a dream sequence, but I think Cabot's still dead at this point, so maybe not. We flash back to the first time that Cabbot got resurrected. Bit of a different process by the looks of it. I'm not sure exactly what they do, because the perspective on this is fucked. They're all in like a tiny little command center, actually, while a tube goes like diagonally, but like at a 30-degree angle, like pretty close over their heads. So maybe they're like shooting Cabbot through tubes to kind of like wake up. Like, hey, buddy, no, you're not dead. Come on, snap out of it. Yeah, that's terrible perspective. And so we're going to cut to a couple of security guards that hang out at these rejuvenations. We got one grizzled vet and one green rookie. And of course, the green rookie is scared about what's going on. The grizzled vet's like, you got no reason to be scared. We're just here as a precaution. There's no chance of anything going wrong here. Nothing ever has. And of course, the minute they finalize the rejuvenation process on Cabbot, he goes busting through the tube here and just starts wreaking havoc. And the guards have to spring into action. This stuff's all okay. This has got to be Keith Giffen layouts because it's all fairly clear. This stuff here, like there's no way an image guy lays that out. This looks pretty bad. I gotta say, for a dude leaping at you, this is one of the worst ones I've seen, I think. Like, I think there's a decent chance Mark Pacella might be able to do a better job than that. Yeah, not impressive. So, Cabbot goes about smashing faces, chokes the one dude out, grabs the vet, and yanks him down. That's a bit of a tough angle, actually. Good job there. And the kid kind of freezes because he can't react in time, but that's okay because Battlestone's on the scene. Except it's less okay because Battlestone immediately kills the guard by snapping his neck. And he calls Cabbot's attention over to himself. Cabbot leaps at him. Yeah, this stuff is quite bad. So this is, I think, okay, this is definitely not Marlo Alquiza, I'm quite sure. It's either Jonathan Sabal or John Lowe. I think Jonathan Sabal is still a competent inker. So I'm wondering if this is John Lowe, because this is pretty bad. I've never heard of John Lowe, so I could, if it turns out he's good, I don't know. But yeah, Battlestone just came down because, of course, he's the one who brought Cabbot to Project Born Again, as he would have later on with Brigade Number 1 when he brings Stasis there, because that's like his first instinct. He's like, okay, someone gets killed, you bring him back. But yeah, nothing's too impressive here. Like, again, at least it's clear what's going on in some of these. But the drawing's not very good. The inking doesn't help. The colors don't help. Because the palette that Byron Talbot uses always looks washed out. All right, so now we're going to cut to rural Virginia. So this was covered briefly at the end of the last issue. This is the Covenant of the Sword, who have infiltrated Project Born Again. Seeing as how Noble here just got in charge of the team right around this time, I'm guessing he's one of their disciples or whatever. And they're fretting a little bit about Chapel being assigned to the Bloodstrike team, because they had a plan in place, and this is kind of a monkey wrench in the works. And they wonder, since Chapel is so volatile, maybe they can convince him to join their cause, because you would want a guy who's super volatile in your organization, absolutely. I mean, if you can find the right role for him, I guess, sure, why not? I'm sure Chapel would be useful in some way. All right, back to Project Born Again. This is present day. It gets a little unclear from time to time when this is happening. We could have used a few more of these text boxes at the beginning. And one of the techs that was working on Cabbot is trying to explain to Noble that it's just not working because Cabbot himself doesn't want to come back. It seems fairly obvious. And they've never encountered this before, and they're not sure how to proceed. And Noble tells him, I don't give a shit what Cabbot wants. He's getting revived, and if he isn't, he's not the only one who's not coming back. So now we're going to cut to the other members of Bloodstrike. There was a second where I was like, oh yeah, it's more than just the one guy. At least for the next little while, anyway. So Shogun's waking up. Foreplay, I guess, is still getting operated on. So he's only got Tag to talk to, so that's super creepy, I'm sure. Tag, of course, barely got injured in the last one. She got lucky. Shogun, not so much. And Shogun's gotten pretty nihilistic about the whole thing, where he knows that he's just reusable cannon fodder, and he's just going through the motions. And Tag counters by saying that, look, you signed the paperwork, you knew what you were getting into. And he's like, yeah, it's a little different when you sign up for something and then when you're actually in it. And you're, being revived over and over again as an inhuman monster, which is what we are now. So yeah, interesting showing them at different levels of acceptance for their condition. Obviously Cabbot doesn't want anything to do with this anymore at all. Shogun is just kind of tired of it. We saw from the last issue, Foreplay was still trying to pretend like she was still alive, going out in public and shit, and just trying to do regular things. And Tag seems to love the resurrected life, which is good, because you wouldn't want them all having the same perspective on this, because that'd be boring. And then we're going back to a flashback and see there's no indication. Again, a little bit troublesome. But anyway, Battlestone is outside of Cabbot's quarters. And he's just asking, so, what's the story? And he's like, well, he hasn't moved since, he went and killed 3 people after waking up. That's an okay shot, kind of iffy perspective there. I'm not really the guy to talk, of course, but it's okay. We get a few splash pages in this, eh? There's that one. There's the upside down operating thing. There's that one there. Yeah, just every once in a while. It doesn't necessarily feel like the usual kind of time you would put in a splash page, which is when action happens. Sometimes you just get a splash page because it's like, I don't know, we got 22 pages to fill, man. So they check in on Cabbot, who's just sitting there and not really doing much of anything. Battlestone's like, all right, I'm going in there. Take a hike, kid. And the kid doesn't immediately respond, so Battlestone smacks him out of the way and goes, great, you mind your orders. I'm going inside. And yeah, Cabbot is not coping very well with this whole being brought back from the dead thing, so naturally Battlestone is going to make fun of him a little bit. He's just like, come on, aren't you going to at least thank me? If not, maybe we can settle this the way we did when we were kids. We used to give each other noogies, only now that we're superpowered zombies, we can really go hardcore at it. And he just like noogies his scalp off. And Cabbot's immediate reply is to like do a palm strike that apparently snaps Battlestone's neck. Good shot, I guess. And I guess we've decided that Cabbot is one of those super hairy dudes. Where it's just, all over the shoulders, all over the back, all up and down. Like he's a Wolverine character, apparently. Yeah, this is stuff that Keith Giffen did not lay out. Like this stuff, maybe. This stuff, yeah, I think probably. This stuff, nah. But yeah, Cabbot jumps on Battlestone. This is the first time he started talking, at least. Tells him to shut up and just keeps pounding on him, just punching, shut up, shut up, shut up, until Cabbot's kind of a bloody mess. And we end with Cabbot here kind of going, man, is this what it comes to? I didn't ask you to bring me back. Why'd you have to? And we cut back to Battlestone, who apparently, somehow, even with his neck broken, is able to write on the wall in his blood, Mom always liked you best. That's a lot of writing for Cabbot to not notice in the meantime. All right, so now we're back in present day. They're actually getting close to being able to bring Cabbot back. They've got him all ready to go. They're just trying to kickstart him, so they bring the adrenaline back up one more time. And of course, it kind of just snaps him out of it and propels him out of bed. And like, oh shit, get the tranquilizers. This did not go well last time. But he's immediately got control of himself, so that's good. He's just a little pissed off that he had to get brought back one more time. And it's okay, because this time, we play by my rules. I don't know what that means. But I'm curious to see what exactly Cabbot's rules are for bringing him back from the dead. And then we're going to follow up with Noble talking to the team now, who have all been resurrected. I guess Cabbot is somewhere else, though. And he's telling him that, I've been assigned, and I've taken over the group. And we're going to try to make sure that what happened with Supreme doesn't happen again, because you guys were an embarrassment. So, this is what we're starting out with. Your new field leader, Chapel. And it's like, that's a hell of a splash. Okay. This is what Chapel looks like now, is it? You imagine a guy dressing like that every day and thinking it was okay? The shot itself, not too bad, really. I mean, Chapel himself looks really weird. But I think that's just, if you don't have Rob drawing it, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make a ton of sense when Rob does draw it. But musculature here, like there's a lot of extra obliques getting added in, but that's okay. That's fun. All the extra tendons, The comic page is huge, and he's just got to fill it with tendons and muscles and folds. And that's a good approach, I think. All the tech stuff in the back here looks pretty nice, too. Good job. All right, so next issue, surprise follows surprise as Chapel takes the helm as leader of Bloodstrike in a tale we had to call Changing of the Guard. So are we going to get less Cabbot in the next one, I wonder? It does seem as though Keith Giffen has less of a hand in the next issue. Yeah, because next issue, the writer and layouts are by Eric Stevenson, and Keith Giffen just does story assists. So I would guess that means probably Keith Giffen had some notes for ideas he wanted to do, but he doesn't want to do this anymore. I think that's probably the case. I haven't read a specific interview or anything where he said that. I think I went looking for him and couldn't find him. But given how Keith Giffen felt about Lobo, who was one of his creations, but he didn't like him because he thought he was reprehensible. It was meant to be sort of a criticism of the hyper-violent characters, and then once that got popular, he had to keep writing it, and then he just washed his hands of the whole thing. So if he doesn't like a character like Lobo, then because he's, reprehensible and nihilistic, I mean, you don't get a whole lot more nihilistic than a team of superheroes that keeps getting brought back from the dead. Anyway, we also got Vanguard number 3 coming out with a cover by Joe Mad. That's a pretty good one. Not one of his most involved ones or anything, but it's interesting at this point how easily Joe Mad can just whip off a quality image. And then we've got the Morgue. And I was reading through this, and the Morgue actually seems to be important because it seems like this is where a lot of the Bloodstrike lore gets established. Because a lot of these letters have questions, and then the editors reply to those. The editor is a lot of the time the writer, or, they're in the same office, whatever. And it feels like just, that's canon going forward. Like, for instance, here, how did Foreplay go blind? Foreplay has been blind since birth. I don't think it's ever been mentioned that Foreplay is blind. Not in the context of the comic, anyway, unless I just missed it. And then how does Foreplay's helmet make her see? So, like, everybody knew that Foreplay was blind, except me, apparently. So, and that's the point of the helmet, is to enable her to see. So it's like, okay, it uses electronic implants in her optic, whatever. Bullshit they made up. They say here, is Deadlock a multiple personality type guy? Yes. And don't miss next issue for more developments in Deadlock's life. So we're just formally establishing that as fact. It seemed like they wanted to push the twin brother thing for a little while. And they're like, nope, it's definitely not the case. Are the things around Cabot's eyes part of his body? When he got out of the shower, they were still on him. Say here, the eye coverings are implanted in his skin? I was like, why? Now the rest of them need that shit. I wonder what the in-universe reason is for Cabot to have little pointy things around his eyes. I'm sure that it's very well thought out. Is Foreplay a mutant, or is that the effect of Project Born Again? Project Born Again. So she's had, like, extra arms grafted onto her, apparently. Again, here, are there 2 Deadlocks? Nope. We didn't like that idea very much at all. And I mean, that's kind of it for this one. But, like, that's still, like, there's a lot of stuff that just seems to get established in the letters page. So, next issue, Bloodstrike goes to the chapel. That's okay, I guess. After the humiliating defeat at the hands of Supreme, Chapel is commissioned to lead the undead horde. Cabbot and the rest of the team are not too thrilled about the command change, so Cabbot is still there, okay. Also, big changes in Project Born Again, thanks to the Covenant of the Sword. You cannot miss this exciting turning point in Bloodstrike. What about it being a tale from the halls of Extreme? I feel cheated. And then we get the usual Extreme behind-the-scenes crap. But I think I've seen this once or twice and not really said anything about it. This is the Eric Stevenson file card. And I mean, Eric Stevenson is extremely important to Extreme. He writes, like, most of the books, and he's the editor. And he seems to be very close to Liefeld. And this might be a little interesting to read. So, like, on starting with Image, pure luck. Yeah, I believe it. Once I'd made the decision to work in comics, I began looking at how other people were going about it. So anyway, he decided to do some interviews and shit, and he managed to get an interview with Jim Valentino. And from there, he eventually started working with him as an assistant. And also around that time, Image was forming, and Valentino was sharing a studio with Rob Liefeld, because they're besties. And so he started working with Rob, and I guess Rob thought, hey, this guy seems kind of smart. Why don't you do everything for Extreme? Yeah, just kind of interesting to find out how he got to start there. That thing again. Oh, that's the cover for Bloodstrike number 8. Get a nice Jay Lee cover. Not interior, unfortunately. But what can you do? New Men, coming out by Jeff Matsuda, who is still managing to keep his style together for now. And Troll, again. It's funny, I keep ignoring this, but you look at the other ads that pop up in Extreme books, and everything is just kind of a one and done, but Troll is in everything. They really want to make sure that Troll is coming out, and that you want to get a copy. And I gotta think it bombed, because there was only like 1 or 2 issues of Troll. Because I assume nobody gives a shit. And Troll, he's 3'4", he's 2,000 years old, and he's looking for a good time. Big things come in small packages. So I guess he's the small package, big things coming. Okay, so that's it for Bloodstrike number 6. It's an interesting issue, actually, because it's largely a nuts and bolts kind of issue. We got a decent bit of backstory about Cabbot, but the rest of it is just kind of how the Project Born Again company works when somebody needs to be resurrected. We get to see it in detail. And yeah, I mean, like, it was a 22-page comic. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel too long. No, that's kind of a job well done, really. You usually either get an issue that's predominantly fighting or predominantly talking. And, you know, if it's one that's predominantly talking, you went, shit, I kind of wasted my money this month. This is actually fairly interesting. I'm also interested to see where it goes from here, because Keith Giffen has started to set up a bit of a framework before he, you know, jumped ship on this or was fired or whatever. I think it's more likely he left. I mean, you know, he did stick around for Trencher. I think if he got fired, there probably would have been a bit more bad feelings. So it'll be interesting to see if Eric Stevenson decides to play off of that at all. We've only got a couple of issues from now until the Extreme Prejudice crossover starts. So that'll kind of set the tone going forward, I think. So again, kind of looking forward to that a little bit. Just I might be eating my words on that in a month, but we'll see. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe on my Patreon. That'll give you access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff, the pages, the finished comics, and the script. Script's in there too. As well as these videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, usually a week or so in advance, and some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions. So yeah, Bloodstrike number 6. Decently written, kind of shittily drawn and badly colored. But the decently written actually does seem to carry it. So that's all right. Can they manage next time? Probably not. Stay tuned. So yeah, let's get to it. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.